everybody, welcome back to my creative corner here in Cumbria in the UK. Welcome to a beautiful spring morning here, and a very warm welcome if it's your first time here. Thank you for finding me, and thank you to my lovely loyal friends here, my YouTube friends who have stood by me all this time, all these years now, which is crazy. It's just lovely to have you here and welcome you to my tiny little corner. It's a tiny room that I'm in. I used to have a big studio and I don't anymore because this suits me better. I can be more focused in here. I've still got a big store cupboard, don't get me wrong. Everybody has a stash, don't they? Especially if you're using fabrics. You just kind of need quite a few fabrics to choose from. That's my excuse anyway. And a few books and a bit of this and collections. Don't you find you have collections of things, you know, stones and pebbles and things you've picked up, bits of rust. I particularly like bits of rust. So I hope you've had a good week. It seems to have been a very quick week. I've had a very creative week. I feel as though there's something lovely in the air at the moment about creativity. I think perhaps because spring is here, it's really coming in. Honestly, it's warm today. I've just been outside. I went down to the garden and I saw the geese. Our two little lovely geese down there, and they are eating grass like nobody's business. They're suddenly in spring mode and they've even started laying eggs. If you've never had a goose egg, they're absolutely enormous. They're like this size. And my husband puts them on in a frying pan and it just about takes up the whole frying pan sometimes. And I've got a neighbour who loves them, so my great pleasure at this time of year is to go around with a little box with a goose egg in for him, and he just loves it. It's just fantastic. I think maybe it takes him back to his childhood or something. And you don't often get goose eggs. You can't really buy them in the shops. It's not a thing. But I love our geese. They're such friendly girls. They're really lovely. And they're a delight to have about the place. They really are. Until we get some more chickens, because we haven't really got any chickens at the moment. They all kind of passed over. Our last warrior chicken passed away back in January, I think. And we're waiting to get some more rehoming ones to look after and, you know, have around the place. So that's all to come. So I was thinking about springtime and focusing on something good. I went to my yoga class last night, which I absolutely love. It's a really relaxed class and we have a lovely session and we talk to each other. Before we start, we all say one positive thing or something we're grateful for before we start the class. And that's a really nice way to focus on positive things when there's a lot of stuff going on in the world which is very difficult to deal with, isn't it? I'm sure we've all got stuff in our own personal lives, but also we can see what's unfolding on the bigger stage out there. There's some, you know, quite difficult things going on out there. And my heart goes out to everybody who's involved in things that are tricky, because we all have stuff in our lives that challenge us, but some people have really got some big things going on. But anyway, went to the yoga class and they've got roadworks in my local town. Well, that's always amusing, isn't it? You never know which road's going to be closed. And there was like this huge queue of traffic as I drove in, and I thought, oh, do I go another way? Do I just sit in it? And I just thought, you know what? It's fine. I'll get there in perfect time. It'll be perfectly all right. And I just sat there and I was able to look at things around me. There was a lovely stand of winter trees to one side and the sky was kind of blue. It was about, I don't know, 5:30 or so. It was still light. And there was like this flock of jackdaws or something just flew into the trees, flew across the sky into the trees. And I just sat there thinking, well, I don't have to go anywhere. Literally, I can't. I'm just sitting here and I'm looking around me at nature, and how beautiful is that? And I wanted to wave and smile at all the other people going past the other way, but I thought better hadn't. It's probably a bit dangerous to distract them. But I just felt really happy. I was quite happy to sit there. And magically, the queue of traffic just sort of disappeared and I found my way back around into town quite easily, and it was just fine. So it's like a lottery, isn't it, when they do roadworks and you don't quite know where they've got them, so you have to kind of judge which direction you're going to go. And I could have gone a really long-winded way in, and I may have to do that next week because I've got some other different roads shut. But I just think, well, that means I can go and travel through the countryside a bit more and have a nice drive to get to town. It's not a difficult thing. And I feel more and more that it's about focusing on the positive things that we've got going on. There's been some beautiful flowers. I don't know what you've got in your garden, but I had one crocus came up and it was flowering, and I just thought, how beautiful. When you look at it closely, this one beautiful crocus. Nothing else in the bed really. Well, there was a bit of pulmonaria, which is nice at this time of year as well. but very tiny. And as I say, literally one crocus, and I just thought, how absolutely stunning is that? So yes, I think it's about focusing on the positive, which is what I'm all about, and playing. So we're going to play today and see where we're going to go. I'm enjoying this process, and I hope you're enjoying it too. Thank you for your company here. It's absolutely wonderful, and we're going to do some more fun things today. So I'm just doing a circular set of marks now, using just I'm just making it up as I go along. I don't know how big it's going to be. I don't know whether I'm going to do sort of several on here. I'm not sure. We'll just see how it turns out and how I'm going to stitch the in-between bits. I don't know yet. I am just playing and seeing what happens. There's nothing hanging on this, nothing riding on this at all, except my pleasure. So I don't know if you can see, I'm just adding some shadowy bits like I've done here. I've added a slightly lighter grey colour, and it does make a difference. If you look at that and then you look at that, you can see, and I'm trying to get it as though the light's coming this way and just putting shadows on this side. So you're getting a slightly 3D effect with it. It's just so much fun. I'm just letting this piece play out. I'm just letting it tell me what it wants. So I'm going to now try and do some little of these little sort of, they're holes, aren't they, on the actual piece of metal. So I'm just going to see what I can do. I'm going to possibly do two colours. I'm not sure. I've got this sort of shadowy grey. I'm just going to see what happens, because I might put a darker grey on top as well. And I'm just doing them random, no big deal. And you can see that I'm just joining them up. I'm not stopping to cut them off. And actually, this is a really nice technique to use if you want to make, you can do interesting things. Obviously you get a line with that, but also if you want to make little sticky uppy bits for any reason, which I have done in the past, when you want to make little patterns or something, you can just be doing something like that and you get these lovely little spiky bits sticking up, which can be quite effective depending on what you're doing. So we'll just keep doing this round. Okay, so here we are. This is all stitched now, and it does make a rather nice sound, and you can see it's different because I've got this stitching here and then no stitching here. I've actually done a little bit of extra dark stitching around these grey ones. So these grey ones are just one colour, and these ones that are kind of closer to us, I've kind of added a bit of detail to them. And it's been so much fun just to stitch it, to be honest. It's been really, really good. It's really good fun, and as I showed you, you can leave some of these little things up if you ever fancy doing that. It works quite well. It's a bit of a faff to kind of snip these things, but you know, it's a very restful thing to do, no big deal. Just sit and snip them. I'm listening to the birds outside, I've had some music on. It's a lovely spring sort of day out there, and I'm just having fun in here. Now I've kind of relaxed into it and stopped fretting about what it might or might not become, how it might pan out. It's just been really good to do. So I'm going to do cutting all of these little snippy bits off, and then I will run my tap over it and let it dry. The patient bit is waiting for it to dry, I'll be honest. But I like already how it's created a slightly, not 3D, a relief. The relief's the word, isn't it? Where you get a relief when you get things that are carved. So we're just going to see how it's going to turn out, and I'll show you the back now. I had a hilarious time because I forgot to put my presser foot down like you do, and I made this lovely bit of knitted stuff up here. And the back's fun as well because it's quite free. There's no, you know, I'm not trying to make it be anything. So it's got all these lovely, and you could leave all these little bits on the back. Or sometimes if they're a bit tight, if they're kind of pulling a bit across there, I will actually go back in and snip them. But because this is on paper, it's not pulling in too much. So as I say, that's a bit of fun. And now I am going to go and run this under my kitchen tap into the sink. I've got a little thing that catches all the paper so it doesn't go down down the drain, so that's quite good. And there we go. Okay, so I'm doing my free machine embroidery again, and I'm doing it from my lovely piece of lichen, this lovely drawing that I did. It's full of movement and shapes, and all I'm doing is I'm just letting my machine wander, and I'm just coming up with the different shapes that are sort of, I haven't drawn it out, I'm not planning it, I'm just letting it come out and evolve and letting the stitching show me where it wants to go, which is quite exciting really. This is so lovely. It takes me back to when I first started doing free machine embroidery, and I used to use black thread on calico and everything was outlined. And I've come a long way. I've been on a very big exploration, a journey of exploration with all the work I've done over the last however many years. But this is lovely to kind of revisit it, but I'm using a slightly different technique. We don't know how it's exactly going to turn out. I'm not controlling it. In the past, when I was doing those outlines, I probably would have drawn it all out and then, you know, stitched it in. This is totally out of my head, and I'm just responding to the drawings I did and thinking about the lichen that I saw on the piece of wood. So this is what it's looking like, and I'm really quite pleased with that. I've so enjoyed doing the stitching for this. It's very fluid, and I've kind of just made it up as I've gone along, and I've learned things as I've gone along, and I've thought, ooh, is that really how I wanted to stitch it? Ooh, could I have done it differently? So some of them I've left a little bit more open, and we'll see what happens when we take the soluble paper off. But I am going to stitch in between because I want to try and create this relief effect again with the layers. So I'm going to now stitch with a lighter coloured thread. I've got to pick the right bits. I've sort of made a choice to stitch the bits in between, but not the actual lichen-y bits. So we'll see what happens. This might be a good choice or it might not. We will find out. Oops. Here we go, that's that piece all stitched, and I'm really quite excited. Once I started to do this little bit in here, it's amazing how it made the lichen-y bits that will really stand out. So I'm quite excited to see how it's going to wash away, what the paper's going to do. We'll have a little look and see. That's going to be next. Okay, so these are my finished little pieces. Whether these are samples or finished pieces, I'm not really sure. They've just been something I've really enjoyed the process of making. So this is the piece I made last time. Very simple. If you weren't here last week, it's just stitched all the way through 3 layers like I've done in this film. And it's just really very small. It's a bit smaller than the others. So this is the lichen piece, and I'm really intrigued because it's created this really sort of scrunched up papery feel to it, because it's kind of, the paper's kind of trapped on the surface of the fabric underneath. You can see some places where I've washed it away more. There's more of the underneath surface coming up, which I quite like. I didn't want to control it. I ran it under the tap very gently, and I just let the paper do what it wanted to do. And you can see it kind of hides some of the edges, so it's no longer a very crisp outline. You can really see the outline, yes, but it's not as crisp as it was, and I like that. It's sort of it's like an alchemic process. I'm not in charge of it, I'm not in control of it. I just wash it and then let it see what happens. I think maybe next time what I might do is just simply plunge it into water and not run the water over the surface, maybe. I don't know. I think there's lots to experiment with here. And the other thing I thought about was actually how you could be adding silk paints or something to the surface as well. You could actually be adding colour to it, or I don't know, there's all sorts of possibilities. And that's the back. See, the back's lovely because somehow this paper on the back, this tearaway stabiliser, I almost prefer the back in a way. It's kind of pushed up in a different fashion, and because it hasn't got the paper obscuring it. So there's a choice there. You could say, well, I really love that surface, but also I really like that surface as well. Complete with mistakes where I forgot to put the presser foot down. There's always something. So the other one is this piece, which is the sort of, this was the rose from my watering can that I drew. I'm not as excited by this one. I think it's more sort of mundane somehow, but it might float your boat more than it does mine. I don't know. I like the way that this bit's kind of sticking up. It's what happens when you do circles on fabric. It does tend to pull it up, no matter what kind of surface you're doing it on. Also, a lot of the paper washed away from here, which is quite nice, but it left these lovely little bits around the stitching here, which makes it quite interesting. So I think I like this bit quite a lot. I'm not so fussed about this one. I don't know why. I think because it's trying to look like something, maybe. I don't know. Or whether you do a series of these and you could just have, you know, obviously if on a bigger piece, you'd have a lot more circles. So that circle would just become one of many circles. So, but I like the contrast because I did all this stitching here, which is what I hoped, is it's given this contrast between the actual image here and the sort of background. And that's the back. I thought I'd show you the back because I really went for it with forgetting to put my presser foot down, and it made all this lovely, lovely stuff on the back, which I really do like. And the back, again, the back is really interesting because it's got a more defined colour on the back here. You know, which would you choose? You'll have to let me know in the comments. Would you go for the front of these things or the back? This is much more intentional, obviously, but I really like the back because it's like this extra gift, isn't it? It's just an extra gift on the back. So you could put them all together like that as a threesome and just look at the backs. That's not as sort of obvious because I did a paler colour of grey on it. But again, it's got its own joy. So I think this has been a really interesting thing to do, to go from, you know, these tiny little original drawings that I did from the mosses outside through this big piece of drawing where I was just extracting it, and then as I was stitching I had this in front of me so I could just refer to the sort of shapes I was getting, and that's something nice in its own right. And then you've got the actual finished piece which has its own charm as well. I was thinking about how you could frame these. For once, I was actually thinking about how you could frame these, and I was thinking, well, I was thinking about the tiling idea of these being these tiles here, which I really love. And I was thinking, well, it would be quite nice to put them onto something. So I'll just turn that back over to the right side. And I think that works. I think each of these could be quite nice on a squared up a little bit, but allowing all of these lovely rough edges. I've got to do a little bit of trimming, I think, but I love all the rough edges, don't you? Would you want to tidy it all up and make it all tight and tidy? Because I don't think I would. I love how all the threads are just coming off the edges, and that's the edges are wobbly because the paper wasn't done right to the edge. I really quite like that. It's got its own charm. So that, as I say, that would be one way I would think of to sort of put them together, almost like they're tiles on a wall. This one's the one that interests me least, but maybe, as I say, that might float your boat more than it does mine. I think this is the one I love the most. It's the drawing that I loved the most of all the ones I did. And you know, this is nice, it's lovely, and this one got me started. That's the thing, it got me started, it got me going, and it got me experimenting, and that's what it's all about. So it's been a journey, it's been a process, and I am just quite thrilled with how it's come together. And I might be doing some more with this, I'm not sure. I've just got an idea in my head of what I might like to do going forward with this. There's some possibilities there. So I hope you've enjoyed this with me as much as I've enjoyed showing you it, and we'll be back here next week, and who knows what's going to be happening, as you always know. I hope you have a lovely, peaceful, creative week, whatever you're doing, and I'm sending much love to you, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye bye for now.
ba-da-ba-ba.